We're back, and I'm delighted to say we're continuing our conversation with one of our regulars, Charles Sam Faddis, a longtime clandestine service officer of the Central Intelligence Agency, worked in some of the toughest places in the world, and understands enemies of this country, and has devoted his life to protecting it against them. Sam, you've written recently about Howard Zinn's project and others like it that are taking this communist revolutionary agenda and really force feeding it into our school systems. We've been hearing a lot about critical race theory and that sort of Maoist uh, cultural Marxism agenda, but this sounds like it's an even bigger enterprise. Talk a little bit about it, if you would.
Right. Well, I think what's particularly interesting about Howard Zinn, who and what he created, which was the Zinn Education Project and a whole bunch of affiliates that are now connected to them, is the expressly Marxist nature of this. So when you look at things like people are probably dimly aware that in a lot of schools now, their kids are being taught, and this is all the way down to kindergarten, this very left wing uh, ideology and revised history of the United States, that the United States is a colonial settler nation, to use their terms. What exactly that's supposed to mean, it's unclear. But in any event, it's an inherently bad, racist, genocidal regime. Always has been bad. And this, by the way, is all due to white people, and they are inherently bad as well. I mean, there's my nutshell summary. Again, what is apparently just not discussed, because it's obvious, is that all of this is a direct outgrowth of Marxist ideology. And in fact, even saying it's an outgrowth is misleading, because that suggests that that's gone away. I mean, the folks pushing this are expressly Marxists, and in their discussions, their communications, the article we just wrote, the first rule of Marxism is you don't talk about Marxism, is the title of the article at hand, to bring home this point. These guys are as Marxist as they could be. They don't hide it. They brag about it. They write about it. They're interviewed about it. They they hate the nation, and they want to destroy every element of the republic. And yet somehow we don't discuss this. We don't say, "Hey, yeah, but the guy that produces all of that material is a communist and idealizes the USSR and wants to turn us into that nation." Not
Yes.
abstractly, like expressly.
And this comes down, as you point out in your article at Substack, Sam, that they're not teaching our kids reading, writing, and arithmetic. They're
No.
talking revolution, and we are not, I guess, to be surprised at the upshot of this. We're breeding a generation of kids who will be very much the foot soldiers for the revolutionary Communist Party that, as you say, is on the march at the moment. Another piece that you've just recently filed called Terror Air. This is a particularly chilling story because we all have some familiarity with aircraft being used as weapons against us, of course, going back to 9/11, most especially. But this seems to be being mounted on a transnational level, particularly involving parts south of our border, which, as you said, is very porous. That suggest a level of well potential violence against this country that we haven't seen to date. Um, Give us a sense of what's going on here and who are the players in
Right. Well, the article focuses on a specific aircraft. It's a 747. It's a 747 cargo aircraft that right now, as far as I know, is still on the ground, has been effectively seized by the Argentinian authorities. Being operated by a Venezuelan cargo airline that I think actually consists of that one aircraft. But it's on lease from the Iranians, from Mahan Air. Mahan Air is an arm of the
it?
IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard Corps. So the Iranians do this all the time. They have supposedly commercial airlines, but they in fact do only business for the Iranian government. In this case, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, specifically moving weapons and all kinds of things to groups like Hezbollah around the planet. So this aircraft is seized. It's got something like 19 guys on board, which is way too many people for a cargo aircraft. And at least 5 of them, maybe more, turn out to be Iranians. And the guy flying the plane is actually a general in the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, which should give you an idea of, obviously, the mission is pretty significant and pretty serious if the IRGC has dedicated a general officer to be the pilot. These guys have been flying all over South America and into Central America. And last stop before they were grabbed was Mexico, and doing things like turning their transponder off so they can't be tracked. Obviously, they are moving things on behalf of the Venezuelan government and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, and they are involved in some sort of covert, surreptitious activity south of our border. And when they were grabbed, whatever they had delivered was not on the plane. All they had left was what I would call a cover cargo of auto parts, so they can claim they're doing something legit. So whatever they delivered, they dropped off in Mexico already before they were grabbed. And that could be anything, including weapons of mass destruction.
Sam, again, the scale of this indicates, as you say, the direct involvement of hostile powers operating throughout our hemisphere, which
Yes.
is of particular concern because, as you know very well, the hemisphere is increasingly under the domination of who? Well, these same Marxists that you were talking about earlier, if not identical Marxists, certainly fellow travelers, shared ideology, shared hostility towards this country. But in addition to those indigenous Marxists in places like Peru and Chile and now Colombia and who knows,
Right.
maybe Brazil next, as well as Venezuela and Nicaragua and so on. We are also, it appears, looking at the increasing involvement, not just of the Iranians and Hezbollah, but the Russians and the Chinese, particularly.
Yes.
Just give us sort of a situation report, if you would, Sam, as to the kind of problem that this represents if, in fact, these guys run the table on our hemisphere and are able to do operations like the one you've just talked about, not at a microcosmic level, but at a grand scale.
Well, we've abandoned control of our national security, right? We have the most charitable thing you can say about the current White House is it's the most incompetent in history. I think, as everybody knows, I think that's too charitable because I think this is a deliberate wrecking operation. But there's blood in the water. Every enemy we've got is out here. The Russians are moving into Nicaragua. The Chinese are moving in everywhere. People are talking about hypersonic missiles, Russian hypersonic missiles that could be nuclear capable in Venezuela. That means a missile in almost no time is in Miami or anywhere else in the country. We got Iranians and Venezuelans cooperating Revolutionary Guard Corps, which is a terror outfit, moving cargo that's so big you need a giant 747 cargo jet to move it. It didn't come in a Piper Cub. Whatever they moved, they needed to haul in that. And with all of this happening, our border doesn't exist. I mean, you could stop basically using the word border. We don't have a border.
Sam, this is ominous in the extreme, needless to say. It's one of the things that we value so much about the work you do these days at And Magazine, as also a member of our committee on the present danger of China. I know you'll keep up the good work, and we'll look forward to visiting with you with, I'm afraid, some more serious updates yet to come next week. But in the meantime, thank you for the work you do, my friend. I know you'll keep it up, and I hope most especially that, as I'm sure you feel, it's our prayer that we're wrong about all of this. But unfortunately, I'm afraid
Absolutely.
we're all too right. We'll talk with you again next week, Sam. Next up, we'll speak with Scott Powell about other aspects of the death of 1,000 cuts being inflicted by the Biden administration. Stay tuned.